Okay, this is Mearns here. I'm going to be a little bit quiet because it's very late, and I'm just going to show you how to play this little pattern for the song Bells from the Yes the Raven album, Love is Covered in Dust. So the first chord is a little kind of miniature A minor shape, capo on the 7th fret. Literally E minor, but you know, we'll just talk in terms of shapes. A little A minor thing here, right? And I'm in core position here with the right hand. The thumb is starting off on the 5th string, the A string, and it's just going to be like the bass player, right? And then I've got a wee pattern here with the right hand, which is actually quite simple. It's going to go thumb with the index and with the A finger at the same time. So the 5th string, 3rd string, and the 1st string all together. And then the thumb and middle finger together. So you see that? He asks rhetorically. Okay, so it goes like that, back and forth. So the right hand's actually not that complicated, although you have to gain a certain amount of control of your core position to get that to happen. And if you don't remember what core position, go back into the wee finger picking tutorials. It talks about orange position and core position and just a healthy right hand pluck. So if you speed it up, it'll sound kind of like that. And then I'm going to show you how I kind of generate that little pattern. It goes. I'm actually not plucking the next note that happens in between those plucks. I'm just whacking it. It's like a wee hammer on the 2nd string, 1st fret. So if I do just the first one, it would be like, right? And then I go and do the thumb with the middle finger. So it creates a little pattern. It sounds like. It's important when you do stuff like this, make sure that you're using a guitar that the action's set up low enough, you know, and your strings aren't too thick or anything. These are just light elixir acoustic strings, like 12 to 53. You want to use as light a strings as you can get to make a good sound. You don't have to be a tough guy and have big thick strings, unless you're doing some kind of bluegrass thing we really like to dig into it and all. But for this kind of wee trick, you wear your hand out if you're doing a lot of slurs, and you know, it's difficult. So don't make it any harder for yourself than it has to be. You could take your guitar to a local music store and get it set up nicely. If I just keep hitting that 1st fret rhythmically, it'll kind of have that, you know, and you have this octave. Sorry, it's like. Which has like a kind of a bell-like quality. Glung, 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 you know. And then the next chord is basically a wee C chord, and you don't even have to play this middle note with your 2nd finger. It's just this 3rd fret here, 5th string, 3rd fret, and then same core position. Got the index finger on the 3rd string, A finger on the 1st string. And then we're doing the same thing with our index finger, because we have the same pattern, it's still going to go. Okay, so that's the second chord. Then for the third chord, we're going to go to kind of a G chord, but a very easy one again. This is the benefit of doing fingerstyle stuff. You can kind of do more with less, because you can pick very specific strings and treat your guitar more like a piano, you know, with good voice leading, you know. So I'm going to go down here to a G, a quote unquote G, 3rd fret, 6th string. But what I'm going to do with my right hand, I'm going to shift it all up into what I call secondary chord position, where the index finger is on the 4th string, middle finger is on the 3rd string, and the A finger is on the 2nd string. And then we got our 3rd finger up here, and then the piggy in the middle here is going to be our 2nd finger of the left hand, and it's going to whack the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, like what would be an A. And then the same pattern is going to occur. It's going to go pluck, 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 pluck. So it's going to be a similar pattern, but it's more going to... Right, so that's the 3rd chord. And then the next chord is a wee D minor. Because I've kind of come from up here, I'm going to put my pinky down for the D instead, just to make it more reliable. I don't like to try and jump from place to place, you know, unless you absolutely have to. You always want to be kind of sneaky with your left hand. Really great. Classical players, you know, if you watch John Williams playing the classical guitar, his left hand's like a tarantula. It's kind of seeking out the next thing before it's needed, so it's very close. You know the way tarantulas walk, and they kind of feel the air and feel whatever they're walking on, so they don't make a mistake, you know. So we can kind of do that a wee bit and train our left hand to be like that. So if I'm up here, I can be telling my pinky and my brain to kind of get ready and be hovering over the 2nd string. So then I go down to a wee D minor chord, right? And I'm doing exactly the same pattern. I'm just taking it back to the normal chord position, and I'm doing repeated thumb notes on the 4th string. So it's going. And just a wee bit about hammer-ons or slurs, you call them. I think it was Pete Seeger actually invented the term hammer-on when he was teaching the world how to play the banjo, which is a good name. Pull-offs is not as good, and I'll explain that some other time. But you really want to try and get, for stuff like this, at least in classical music, when you're doing a good hammer-on an acoustic instrument, you really have to try and get it square on with the wee bony part of your finger. So when you're looking down at your left hand, it's like your fingernails should be looking at you, okay? That's very difficult to do, say if your thumb's reaching over here. See, you've made your whole aperture of your hand kind of shallow, and there's not a lot of room. But if I have my thumb come down like this, do you see that it's much more athletic? And I've got this wee gap here, as you can see. And so you can practice doing the little hammer on almost by itself. You can put the chord down, whatever your chord is. And you'll feel your finger hitting the fretboard, almost like knocking on a door, like this, you know. real strong, as opposed to, just kind of whacking at it. So that gives it more natural force and more strength. So the more natural strength it has, just in general with your left hand, it means you don't have to press as much because you're accessing the kind of natural ergonomics of your hand. Hopefully that makes sense. And I sometimes, when I'm teaching wee kids, obviously I'm not being literal with it, but a lot of people have siblings. I know I had a big brother, he's my friend now, but when I was a kid, if you wanted to like defend yourself and pinch your big brother or sister, you wouldn't do this, right? You see how this doesn't really have any natural power, but this, right? This is just more pounds per square inch. So we imagine the natural ergonomics of that, and it doesn't mean that when we're playing the guitar we have to be tense or actually pinch hard or push our thumb in or anything in the back. It just means that we're using our hands in the best way. So you want to try and get that wee knocking sound on the string and just practice the accuracy of that. This song's almost like a wee slur exercise. Okay, so that's that one. And then the fourth chord, I'm going to sneak back into secondary chord position like I did with the G chord, and I'm going to go to kind of an E minor, but I'm not going to do both notes. I'm just going to do the E on the fourth string because I'm not even plucking the fifth string. There's no point in putting something down. And then I'm going to be whacking this third string second fret like a quote-unquote A. Same pattern. Okay. So then when you put those together, it's like even now I can tell by the way you look on. Story changed in a moment, all the feelings are gone. Listen close and I'll tell you what you already know. With a whisper and a kiss, the dogs are waiting. So go repeat, stick around till you found a good reason to leave. It was not helping you or what you want to achieve. It's the truth, but it's not what you want to believe. There you go, I laid it all out in slow-mo for you. Right? And then it goes to the chorus, same pattern. But we're bringing another wee trick. It's going to be a wee bit extra, as the kids say. Because I'm going to be hammering on two strings at the same time. So I've got an F, it's like an F chord, like a 6 chord in A minor, right? Or a little relative capo A minor. So I've got this on the first fret, right, on our little mini guitar. And then I've got both these strings open. Hammering both those notes now, right? And when you do it fast, it sounds like. And again, another wee technical thing is you have to make sure when you're doing slurs like this and hammer-ons that are repetitive, when you're done doing it, you have to completely empty your hand, okay? You can't hold tension in your hand and do stuff like this, or you'll really probably hurt yourself. We don't want that. We want it. So it's almost like this kind of loose thing, just like in athletics and sports. When you see somebody that's good, somebody like Michael Jordan or whatever, they're very loose. They're like a cat, they're very live, as opposed to somebody being stiff and unathletic, right? So when you're in an athletic stance, if you're swinging a golf club or something, you don't want to be tense. You can't hold tension, or else you lose the spring motion of your body. So even when we're playing guitar, we want to kind of keep that spring-loaded motion and keep returning to kind of a point of equilibrium where nothing's happening. So once I'm done plucking, I just empty and my fingers return to where they were. And if they were in a good place, you'll be ready to pluck again. And then this is the same with the left hand here, right? So it's just building a wee bit, it's adding something. By adding something to the texture, by being closer intervals. And then what I'm doing is I'm changing to a G here. Right, so it goes, and I think I actually pluck this string as well. I'm trying to remember how to play this. I haven't played it in the show for a while. And that's the kind of the bell type sound, the bells are ringing over London town, singing everything's gonna be alright. Yeah, so I kind of pluck that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's the bell, kind of. The bells are ringing over London town, singing everything's gonna be alright, but I know it's not so as you're about to witness. Picking nose, go about your business, I know. Then it goes back to the verse, There's a man in a corner with the blood on his ear. You take steps just to tell him what you want him to hear. Sounds bold, but it's closer to fear. Sneaking round and round like that, always so low, so lonely. Found a host and a ride, so you pick a rose. Get a high from cheating and lie that shows. Drop it all like a ghost, so follow your nose. Just long enough for you to hang your clothes on and your stones. Back to the chorus, same thing. The lights are singing over New York City, selling lies, but they look so pretty. I know, sing caca on your TV screen. Why's everybody staring at me? 'Cause I know. And then there's a wee bit of a coda thing. I'm not gonna sing loud because that'll wake the neighbors. And then I go into kind of a double whacking thing here, just on a normal C chord shape. So I've got the C in the bass, and I'm plucking the third string and the first string, so normal chord position. But then the hammer-on notes are not going to be on. They're going to be on the fourth string and the second string as well. So I'm actually generating noises on 5 strings, at the same time. And what I'm doing is, I'm actually just figuring out what I'm doing as I'm blabbing here to you. I'm jumping back and forth between the primary chord position and the secondary one, just like that. If I played the open strings. So during this coda part, I'm not using my middle finger, I'm just hopping back and forth with these two, like that. And then the 16th notes are being generated in between by the hammer-ons. Right? And then I go to an inverted C chord, but it's also basically a G chord. It's kind of both. because of the fluctuating harmony. Because it could be this, but it could also be, so it's kind of in between. Just the pattern is continuing, but you have the illusion that there's not just, but you have this. It's not even an illusion, that is what's happening. So there's those two, and then in sixths underneath, and then the bass is going, so it's going. And then, like a lot of stuff that you can do, you can just change the bass note and the whole chord is going to change. And like I've said before, the less you move, the more you move people, right? So you can keep the same pattern going on top, and you can just move the bass note. Like tons of songs do this, I'll just keep going on about this forever. And what I'm doing is I'm just releasing that G into a open E string, the 6th string. And so then we've got this kind of E minor type thing. So it goes, the coda goes. Back to C. I just end it on a sparser A minor without the thumb. And I'm just doing the same pattern, but I'm leaving the thumb out until the very last note. Okay, and another wee, just interesting note about this song, just to try and give you a wee bit of story. I'm not trying to do the VH1 behind the songs or anything, but when I initially kind of had this wee song going, I had a different melody, different words, different type of sound. And when I was recording it for the album, I was kind of tracking it at home, and then some of them I'd do at home and then send them to Rick, and then we'd mess with it at his studio. It was like it was hard to get it how I wanted to sound, because the tempo was kind of, because of the physical nature of it, it was starting to kind of slow down a little bit, I think, from what I remember. And all the other songs are just me singing and playing the guitar, just kind of single takes live. And then we would add stuff to some of them. But this one was a wee bit different because I wanted to get the guitar part right. And this is a difficult thing sometimes that you have to deal with. You want to get a good performance, but sometimes you have to do things like this. I wanted to get the guitar part right, and I wanted to get the vocal I wanted right. So you don't want to have to sacrifice any of those, right? So if the guitar part's very intricate, this is one of the few times I just did the guitar part by itself, right? And, it's obviously quite common, but especially when you want to have separation between the vocal and the guitar. But the interesting thing about this is when I did that and recorded the guitar part, got it nice and clean, got a good tempo, got it kind of steady, because I wanted it to have this almost dance song type quality. I kind of came up with this other type of melody just by stepping away from the music, right? So this is a very, interesting phenomenon that I try and kind of tap into now, especially with lyrics and melodies. And it's something that frontmen in bands, that write the melodies, whether it's Mick Jagger or Morrissey or Bono, they get a kind of a distance from the music. They just have the music. They've got their microphone or their hairbrush, and you can just allow yourself to sing along with it, and you don't get stuck on the instrument, if you know what I mean. So before I was kind of doing something very intricate on the guitar, and the guitar part was kind of sucking me in to follow it and limiting my melodic imagination, if you know what I mean. So once I got that out of the way, I just knew I had this better idea, because I just started singing stuff, and I was like, oh, this is easy, these guys are just making up melodies and not having to play the guitar, and it's very free, it's very emancipating. So I deliberately did this thing, not necessarily cognitively, but just instinctively. I did something that kind of, the vocal style was much more, what's the right word? Just a bit more understated and looser and, speaky and careless, to counteract the almost over intricacy of the guitar part, right? So that's like an aesthetic instinct, right? If something is already very busy and intricate, sometimes it's wise, but I'm not thinking about it. This is just an instinctive aesthetic decision, is to make the vocal almost the opposite, if you know what I mean. So there's all this fancy pants stuff going on. So it's much more kind of appropriate, I think, to counteract that and try and cut it a little bit with something that's like the opposite. Even now I can tell by the way you look on, the story changed and all the feelings are gone. Listen close and I'll tell you, already know what to... it's just very like a poppy type thing, like not a bubblegum thing, but just this kind of like throwaway attitude, bit of a detachment to counteract the overly intricate, sound of the guitar part. So that's something to keep in mind for your songwriting. Even if you just write a song too that's just chords, I always suggest to people to put the chords down on, just put them on your phone, get the voice memo, record the chord progression, and get away from your guitar, get away from your piano. Because sometimes what we'll do, especially if you don't sing a lot, you'll end up following the guitar chords too much. You'll actually get kind of trawled in with the guitar, and it'll pull you along, and perhaps you'll write less interesting melodies. You'll be limited because you'll follow just the basic kind of notes that you're hearing on the guitar, and you'll kind of start imitating your guitar. But sometimes you want to step away from that, get the hairbrush, pretend you're like, this front man, pretend you're David Bowie, pretend you're whatever, Freddie Mercury, Bono, and just start singing stuff, and be very free with it. And sometimes you'll be surprised by that. It's also a good idea to do that and record what you're doing, because sometimes you'll do this wee fluky thing. You'll do a little melody or a little move, and something will sound really cool, and you won't realize it while you're singing. And you listen back, and you're like, oh, what was that? And you haven't lost it. So that's just a wee story of that song about something that happened. And hopefully you can understand that technique. Try and stay relaxed with it. Watch the core position stuff with the hammer-ons. Try not to hurt yourself. Make sure your guitar is set up easy. Even try it on an electric guitar, and it's kind of a cool little pattern anyway. Maybe you can use it. Maybe some of these like It's, finger style type people can use it for some fancy stuff. But that's what it is. And so have a great day, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo.